Dragon Masters, Dawn of the Light Dragon, written by Tracy West, illustrated by Matt Loveridge. Chapter 1, A New Quest. It was early morning in the kingdom of Bracken, but it looked like night. A strange dark shadow had spread across the sky. The day before, Dragon Masters Drake and Jean had traveled to Sindhu. There, they had learned what was causing the sky shadow. Chaya, a shadow dragon, had eaten a seed that cursed him. The seed allowed Chaya to absorb any magic being used by wizards around the world, filling him with powerful evil energy. Now he was using that magic to create the sky shadow. Chaya's power and the sky shadow were both growing by the minute. Soon the whole world would be in shadow. A wizard had told Drake and Jean that their only hope to stop Chaya was to find the star dragon. Then a scroll revealed that a light dragon was needed to summon a star dragon. Drake and Jean stood in the Dragon Master's classroom, staring at a map with Dragon Masters Bo and Dharma. They all listened to Griffith, the wizard. "These are the Pickland Islands," Griffith said, pointing. The map showed a group of islands floating in the sea. "Drake and Dharma, you should find the light dragon there." Drake studied the map. "What do we know about this place?" he asked. Jean held up a book. "This book that Rory and Anna found says light dragons live on the Pickland Islands because the sun shines day and night during some parts of the year. And a light dragon will help us summon a star dragon, right?" Bo asked. "Yes," Griffith replied. "Do we know how the star dragon will help us stop the shadow dragon?" Dharma asked. Jean shook her head. "No, the scroll doesn't explain that. But the star dragon must be very powerful. It will not be easy to stop this supercharged shadow dragon." Drake shivered, remembering the glowing red eyes of Chaya and his Dragon Master Aruna. Drake and Jean had tried asking them to stop making the sky shadow, but the seed's evil powers were too strong. "Have you had enough rest, Drake and Dharma?" Griffiths asked. "This could be a challenging mission." The two boys looked at each other and grinned. "We're ready," Drake replied. Chapter 2, The Crystal Castle. Drake packed a bag with items for the mission. First, he made sure he had the gold disc that Dharma had given him. Dharma had said Drake would need it, but didn't say why. Dharma can be very mysterious sometimes, Drake thought. Second, Drake packed a book about light dragons. Third, Drake grabbed the map of the Pickland Islands. Drake and Dharma studied the map as they walked into the dragon caves. "Do we know which island the light dragon lives on?" Dharma asked. "No," Drake said, "but Worm has a knack for transporting us close to the dragon we're looking for." Dharma nodded. "Worm is very good at sensing dragon energy." The two boys reached the caves. Drake put a hand on Worm, and Dharma put one hand on Worm and the other on his gold dragon Hema. Every Dragon Master wore a piece of the green dragon stone that allowed them to connect with their dragon. The stone around Drake's neck glowed. "Worm, take us to the Pickland Islands," Drake cried. Worm's body glowed with green light. The light flashed, and Drake's stomach flip-flopped as they transported. When they arrived, Drake noticed the blue sky overhead. The rising sun streaked the sun with orange. "Phew," Drake said. "The shadow hasn't reached here yet." Dharma closed his eyes. "The sun feels good on my skin." Drake looked around. He could see a jagged coastline hugging the sparkling blue ocean. The air smelled of salt. Drake heard Worm's voice in his head. "I can sense something very powerful over the hill." "This way," Drake told Dharma. As they walked up the hill, a low rumbling sound rose behind them. The boys and their dragons turned around. A herd of horses galloped across the land, but they didn't look like any horses Drake had seen before. They were smaller than most horses, Some had long, reddish-brown hair, and others were the color of butter. The boys looked at each other in wonder, then kept climbing. As they reached the hilltop, a stunning sight greeted them. A small castle made of clear crystals overlooked the ocean. The sun's rays hit it, and the light reflected off in a dazzling display. "This castle shines even brighter than Hema's gold temple," Dharma remarked. "Something tells me we've found where the light dragon lives," Drake said. Chapter 3. Rune and Lisa. Drake and Dharma shielded their eyes from the bright light of the crystal castle. As they approached the entrance, Drake heard Worm's voice in his head. "There is definitely a dragon in here. I can sense her." "Let's introduce ourselves," Drake said. The glittering doors were partly open. They entered and stepped into a large room. While the walls and floor were gleaming crystal, the room was filled with ordinary-looking wooden furniture. A table and chairs, a cozy bed, and a bookcase filled with books, toys, and seashells. A dragon was lying on a comfy-looking rug with a boy curled up inside her tail. The boy was moving the piece of a small wooden cube. "That looks like a puzzle cube," Drake thought. The dragon had white shimmering scales. A symbol made of curved lines in the center of her chest softly glowed with rainbow light. The dragon raised her head when she saw the visitors, and her eyes grew wide. The boy's dragonstone glowed, and then he looked over and saw the visitors too. He put down the cube, and his long red braid swayed as he jumped to his feet. The dragon stood too, stretching her gleaming white wings. Drake spoke up. "Hello, I'm Drake, and this is Dharma. We've come because we need help from you and your light dragon." The boy moved his hands and fingers, making shapes in the air. Drake looked at Dharma. "Is he trying to tell us something?" "He's using sign language," Dharma replied. "Back home, the monks use sign language to communicate when they practice being silent." "Do you know sign language then?" Drake asked his friend. "I learned some signs from the monks," Dharma replied. "But sign languages is different in different places. I do not understand these signs." The boy was tapping his foot impatiently as Drake and Dharma talked. "I wish I knew this Dragon Master's language," Drake thought. Then Drake had an idea. He closed his eyes. "Worm, please introduce us to this dragon." After about a minute, Drake heard Worm's reply in his mind. "The light dragon's name is Lisa. She and her dragon master Rune want to know why we're here." Chapter 4. The Secret. "We came here to seek your help," Drake said, and Worm communicated the message to the light dragon. Rune's dragonstone glowed, and he put a hand on Lisa's neck. Soon, Drake heard Worm in his head. "Rune is communicating with me and Hema through Lisa," Worm told Drake. "Rune says I'm deaf, and I communicate using my hands, not my voice. But Lisa and I understand each other's thoughts. Because you two do not know sign language, we will communicate using our dragons." Drake smiled at Rune, and the boy smiled back. Then Drake explained the plan to Dharma. "That's a good solution," Dharma agreed. Drake turned to Worm and Hema. "Dharma and I will count on you two to translate everything we say." He looked at Rune next. "Lisa looks like an amazing dragon," he said, his dragonstone glowing. Worm communicated with Lisa. Soon, Rune's dragonstone glowed, and he nodded as Lisa relayed the words to him. Then Worm passed a message to Drake. "Rune says Lisa is amazing. I was very lucky to be chosen as her dragon master. I think it is because Lisa guards many mysteries, and I am good at solving puzzles." The three boys continued their conversation. Drake and Dharma quickly got used to the flow of messages. "Worm and I communicate using our thoughts all the time," Drake thought. "Until Dharma and I learned how to sign, We all will use this method for communicating with one another. We're here on a mission, Drake continued. A shadow dragon has become evil and is spreading a sky shadow across the world. To stop the shadow dragon, we need a star dragon. But how we summon one is a mystery. A scroll told us that we needed the help of a light dragon, and a book said we would find you here. Drake gave the book about light dragons to Rune. Rune flipped through the pages. He stopped on a picture of a maze with moss-covered stone walls. Is that where Lisa will summon the star dragon? Dharma asked, his dragonstone glowing. Rune shook his head. His dragonstone glowed. Then Worm shared Rune's response. No, the labyrinth holds the secret to summoning a star dragon. Can you tell us the secret? Drake asked. Rune says a star dragon is very powerful. It would be dangerous if the wrong person summoned one. So, with your permission, Lisa will perform the light of truth on you both. We need to make sure you're not lying about your mission. We will do it, Dharma said. We have nothing to hide. Rune motioned for the boys to stand and face Lisa. The symbol on the light dragon's chest glowed brightly with rainbow light. The colorful light reminded Drake of when sunlight hit a waterfall, and he could see all the different colors inside the light beam. Then, the rainbow light surrounded Drake and Dharma. The colors swirled and formed the word, speak. Drake felt strange, like something magical was pulling the words right out of him. Both boys began to speak at the same time. We must stop the shadow dragon, Drake cried. Plants will die and people will starve, Dharma said. A star dragon is our only hope of saving the world, Drake finished. Chapter 5. The Labyrinth. The light of truth swirled. The colors formed a sentence. You speak the truth. The light faded from Lisa's chest. Rune grinned at Drake and Dharma. A moment later, Drake heard Worm. Rune says, the secret of the labyrinth is that it holds a star flute in its maze of walls. With a star flute, you can summon the star dragon. But traveling through the maze will not be easy. It is full of traps and creatures that guard it. Will you come into the labyrinth with us? Drake asked Rune. Rune says, yes, Lisa and I want to help you. I am good at solving puzzles, and we will need Lisa's light to reach the flute. But you will only have until dawn to find the flute. If you fail, the maze will never let the four of you in again. Dharma nodded. Then we will not fail, he said simply. Drake headed for the castle doors. Let's enter the labyrinth. Rune shook his head. Rune says, the labyrinth doors will open at sunset. Then Rune pointed at Worm and Hema. Rune asks, while we are waiting, can you tell me about your dragons? Lisa is the only dragon I have ever seen until now. Drake grinned. We can show you. Worm, lift me up. Worm's body glowed green and a green light began to shine around Drake. Slowly, Worm lifted Drake into the air, using the power of his mind. Rune's eyes got wide. Dharma followed Drake's lead. Hema, fetch me a book, he instructed. Gold light flashed, and Hema transformed into a gold fluffy dog. Hema bounded across the castle, grabbed a book from the shelf, and brought it to Rune. The boy smiled and raised his hand with his thumb, index, and middle finger facing upward. Then he snapped twice and pointed at Hema. That must be the sign for dog, Dharma cried, and he repeated it as Hema transformed back into a dragon. Drake copied the boy. This is a fun language, he remarked. Then he pointed at Worm. What is the sign for dragon? His dragonstone glowed. Rune put his right hand in front of his mouth, with his palm down and his fingers forward. Then he wiggled his fingers and moved his hand forward. Oh, it's like when Vulcan breathes fire. Drake cried. He and Dharma both tried it. I don't think I'm wiggling my fingers right, Drake said. It takes practice, Dharma told him. The monks were patient when they taught me their sign language. Rune, can you teach us more signs while we're waiting for the sun to set? Drake asked. Rune grinned, and the dragons shared his reply. I will teach you signs we can use in the maze,